Welcome to the Parca Office Hours 2024, 27th of February. We have two new releases, one for Parca, one for Parca Agent. And there's so much in there. Like the last Parca release was in October. It was a bit quieter during the holidays and everything, but still we have plenty of things to do and to talk about. So let's just get straight to it. Yomi, do you want to start with UI updates and changes then?
Yes. So like Matthias just said, we've had many changes since the last release. So I will just quickly take us through them. If I can share my screen. Yes. Yes, we can see my screen. So the first one I would start with is that we have completely revamped our date time picker. It's a bit more intuitive and I would say maybe simpler to use right now. So by default, we show the relative time picker in the sense that you can say in the last 15 minutes, you click on there's a minus and plus button that you can use to like increase and reduce the duration. You can go as far as 30 minutes, you can go as far as 1 hour, 3 hours, and I think we can go even as far as up to a day and 2 days now. So that's the first thing that we did. The other thing that we did is where is it? Yes. We added another feature that is behind the preferences tab, which is highlighting similar stacks when hovering over a node. So this can be useful when you would like to, at a glance, see how many times a stack is being called on the high school graph. And you don't want to have to, like, maybe, for example, use the filter by function, field to maybe search for them first of all. So if I enable this, I think I should be able to find something. Yes, exactly. So as you can see, just by hovering, I don't know if that's clear enough. Just by hovering over the sort dot, I mean, this one is really obvious because it's stacked on top of each other. But just by hovering over the sort dot PDQ sort, it sort of highlights the other ones. So that's one thing that we've done again. The other thing that we did is, I mean, you might have seen this already, and I think we've probably talked about this in the previous Parca Office Hours, that we now have like skeleton placeholders for, let me go back a few. Yeah, I think the deployment is a bit flaky. We now have skeleton placeholders for our visualizations. It's a much better way to like, it's a much better way and a better UX for loading data on the dashboard, and helps like, make it feel like the data is being loaded as fast as it can. It's just a much better way to progressively show data than just using loading spinners. So that's the other thing that we've done. I'm just going through the list again because it's a very long list. The other things are mostly just like bug fixes that we've been wanting to do for a while. And yeah, that's it's probably the only thing that wasn't also in this release that we just made recently. It's not really I mean, it's not a UI thing, but we started the process of using SWC to transpile our JavaScript packages. So right now we just did like a very introductory step, which was to use SWC to transfer all of our package. It replaces Babel, by the way, we were using Babel. So if we use SWC to transfer all of our JavaScript packages on the mono repo as a whole, the next step would be to use SWC to transpile for all of the individual packages that we have. So for the components, for the shared components, the profiler and whatnot, that's the next step that we would want to take in terms of using SWC. Let me see if I missed anything else. Yeah, one other thing that we did is also like unifying the time and dates. It's now very like, UTC focused. We show you the time in UTC, we show you the dates in the year, month, date format. So it's very universal. No one can get confused as to if it's the months or dates before. So that's the other thing that we did. I think, yeah, that's probably the things that are worth talking about for the UI. Matthias will probably talk about the change that we made for the CPU cores next.
Yeah, I think one thing you can still show is like the absolute start time and time.
Oh, yes,
They are
yes,
still
yes.
there. Just
I
making
missed
sure
that.
that.
Yeah. So for sure, we still have the absolute time time range. You can either like navigate with the keyboard to change the dates, or you can just click on the calendar icon and we show you the proper calendar icon where you can, choose a particular date that you want. So that's us. Yeah. Thanks for
Nice.
bringing that up. Yeah.
Yeah, and then, like overall, I think it's like super close to what Prometheus has with like the time selection now, especially for the relative time. And once you have like maybe that's also like just to like kind of like showcase it's still there. Like if you go to relative time range, again, and then if you like drag and drop, like select something, like it's still like goes back to like absolute timestamps and just selects whatever you had in your selection, right? So like it's all still there. It's just like I guess for the relative timestamps, it's quite a lot quicker to like type potentially what you want to see. Yeah, nice. But I think you covered basically all of it. So maybe you can just continue sharing your screen if you hover over the metrics graph and just highlight something. Yeah, so like the previously, and I think this was like one of the biggest changes that Frederick worked on, and Frederick added a lot of code changes to FrostDB, our database that kind of like serves Parca in the background, to really query the per second value that you can see in the tooltip correctly. So that means that now we get all of the total samples that we see. We get like the duration that we see for a specific step in the metrics graph, and we don't actually in the application, basically in the Go code, compute all of this anymore, but we actually like really write almost like a SQL, like we have our own kind of like Go structs query language, but we push a query down into FrostDB. And that allows us to be super efficient about calculating the cores per second value. And more importantly, because we are now doing this at in like pushing it down into the database, we are also we've also been super conscious about implementing this correctly, or even more correct. We did some shortcuts previously, but now, as you can somewhat guess, we have 24 seconds in total for the CPU count that we've seen, but we have the duration over 10.19 seconds. So if we take those 3 seconds and divide it by the 10 seconds, we get the roughly 2.4 cores above per second. What that allows us to do, like if you have a Parca agent that on the one hand side samples 19 times per second, so 19 hertz, but on another side you have, I don't know, on a development cluster, you have a Parca agent that samples 100 times per second, so 100 hertz. The underlying values, especially the duration and period, are going to be different. But doing the math correctly, pushing the queries into FrostDB, we can now calculate a per second, like cores per second value that is comparable between various deployments, and it will always be correct regardless of what the amount of samples per second is going to be. So that is super exciting, and we just, or Frederick just finished implementing this for the metrics graph, and the next step is going to be taking all of that code and those query improvements that we have in FrostDB, and making sure that we can also do the same in the flame graphs, or potentially even in the tables, I guess, everywhere. So what that then allows us to do is in the next release, and something most likely I'm going to work on in the coming weeks, is being able to also calculate the cores per second value for all the flame graphs, and then being able to correctly diff across like 1-minute merged profiles and 15-minute profiles, but maybe one is like, again, running 19 hertz per second, the other one is 100 hertz per second. So like all of the math in those calculations should be possible now that we have updated FrostDB and made it even more flexible, so that we can calculate and improve all of this. But yeah, this is like one of the biggest improvements, and the cores per second value is really the highlight, I think, of this Parca release as well, next to the UI features. Other than that, I think there were some other like persistent improvements. So one flag was added for an on-disk index, for example, by Thor. So if that's something you want to take a look at, there's a flag. Anything to add on this, or I just wanted to highlight it?
Yep, no, it's a new storage flag that basically drops the index on disk instead of holding it in memory. So it's just a trade-off where if you find that your Parca instance is using a lot more memory than you really want to deal with, then you can turn on that flag. It'll reduce the memory footprint of Parca with a, depending on how slow your disks are, it might slow down some of the queries for you, but otherwise it should be still pretty quick. So try it out.
Yeah. Yeah, and then and that was like one big change by Thor, and then the other one is like the filter by function. So if you go a bit further down, right above the flame graph, that one, but also filtering for runtime. So like showing or disable showing Ruby, Python, or interpreted stacks. All of that did some filtering of the flame graph. Once the flame graph was built, it like had to like recompute the flame graph, throwing away stacks, etc. And Thor did some amazing work in the last couple of days where he also improved that significantly. I think we are like only like 5 or 10% of CPU time left on filtering by functions and runtime. So like super impressive work as well. And yeah, I think that's really the gist of this release from the backend side. I think we can then move onwards to the agent, unless there are any like immediate questions, but I don't think there will be.
Matthias, I wanted to ask, so the fix, or rather the work that's been done for the CPU cores, does it only affect the CPU samples profile types currently?
I think so. Like previously, I think the CPU samples weren't even shown in like cores per second. It was just shown as samples. So that definitely changed the biggest, and that's kind of the primary profile type that we use because it's the one that comes from the Parca agent. So yeah, I think like for most users of Parca that use Parca with the Parca agent, it definitely changed the most. Potentially for the CPU nanoseconds one, if you like scrape, for example, pprof profiles from the Go runtime. For everything else, like the memory heap and allocation profiles, nothing changed. Yeah, a good question. Yeah. All right. Then Kemal, I guess. Yeah, you can unshare the screen.
Yes, we also have some furry friends in the office hours. That's really nice. Okay, I'm gonna talk about newest features in Parca Agent. Yeah, it's been 2 months since we released. Yeah, it's quite a while. Not as long as Parca server, but yeah, it's been long. Since then, we fixed a lot of bugs, discovered a lot of minor things to improve. You can check the full changelog. But I would like to talk about some highlights, and these are about Python, Ruby, and overall about unwinding. So we added Python 3.12 support. The blocker was the reading the thread state itself from the thread local storage. We had to jump in some hurdles and then like jump over some hurdles, and now it's there. Thanks to that, adding the 3.13 support was really easy. It's not released yet. It's still alpha, and I think it's around 6 months since the next Python version will be released, but you can already start testing with the alpha images if you're looking forward to a feature. So that's what happened with the Python. Please test it. I mean, Python is super hot, and if you see any discrepancies, you'll let us know with the Python support. Also, we added a lot of integration tests to just catch any regressions, and we also start testing things on ARM64. That is a nice segue opportunity. We also added Ruby ARM64 support with this release. So if you have any Ruby loads that you would like to profile on an ARM64 machine, just go ahead and check it out. Parca agent, again, if you see any issues, let us know. We would like to improve things. And one thing that we also added, so in Parca agent, when we unwind the stacks, we use two strategies. One is frame pointer based unwinding, and the other one is EH frame based unwinding. EH frame for designed for unwinding the stack in case some exception happens on x86 systems, but it's a ubiquitous table that you can actually check out and find in ARM64 as well. It helps us to unwind binaries that doesn't have frame pointers. But with this feature, we can actually, so when you have an executable and when it has some dynamically linked parts, different mappings, different programs, you can think this as you have Python. It has a runtime and it links against libc, and now your libc has frame pointers, but your Python runtime doesn't have them. With mixed mode unwinding and switching, we can actually unwind both of these stacks. Previously, we would just like select one strategy and we wouldn't change it and stick to that, and you might miss some stack traces. But by the help of this, now we try with the EH frame based unwinding and check, or like if we know that binary has some frame pointers, we actually start with frame pointer based unwinding because it's faster. So that's also in there as well. Yep, please check it out and give us feedback. It's really hard to get things right with Parca agent because there are a lot of systems and different platforms out there, and like we might miss an edge case, or we might have missed some testing platform. So if you give us feedback, we can just test it out and make sure that it works for you as well. Any questions?
Just super excited to deploy it and run it everywhere.
Yep.
I might have been running a earlier release. Yeah.
Cool. If you have some cool Python machine like model that runs somewhere, just try give it a shot.
All right. Anything else kind of random that people want to throw out that we should discuss? Trying to think. Anything people that are listening might look for if they want to contribute, that they should look for on the agent side. I'm trying to think of anything on the Parca side. I think there's plenty of good first issue and help wanted text all over the repositories. So if anyone sees this and wants to start contributing, those are definitely good pointers.
We also had a couple of first-time contributors in the release. So
yes,
it was nice.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, big shout out to a lot of them. Also Parca agent and Parca itself, but also we had plenty of really nice contributions to, for example, FrostDB, that we don't really touch on here, but they are making a big difference for all of the projects that are built on top of FrostDB, for example. So yeah, definitely nice getting so many contributions from the community. I guess if anyone is seeing this as a recording. And if you want to contribute, but maybe you don't know what to look for, you can also join us for another Parca Office Hours. You can find that online, or just join our Discord server. Follow us on like the Twitter and Mastodon for both Parca and Polar Signals and whatever. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. If there isn't anything else. But we had so many things to talk about, so I'm happy to just end it here. All right. Well, then have a wonderful week, and see you everybody in 2 weeks for the earlier version again, and then we'll see what we have to discuss in the next coming months. Still lots of things to talk about and to do. All right. Well, have a great local time, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.